Right, so Parliament House hosted President Mahama, and the issues certainly will begin to run around the media tonight. My guest is the presidential candidate of the Convention People's Party for 2012, well-known Dr. Abu Sakara is in the studio. Doc, welcome.
Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm great. Hope
Good
you're
to
fine
see you.
too.
I'm well.
Right, so let's begin from here. We saw what happened in the House today. This is the third time President Mahama had the opportunity to go through this. Let's begin from here. His style of delivery, how would you react to it?
Well, I think overall, if you assess a State of the Nation address, you look at the style of the delivery, the substance of it, and then you look at its impact areas. And of course, the areas where you think there's improvement can be made. I think in the style of delivery, you cannot fault him today. It was a flawless delivery, very eloquently executed, and I think that he certainly had his wits about him.
It shows he's getting more and more
of course,
confident.
I think it's his best so far, and I think it's one of the really good ones that I have seen. As usual, it's a bit long, but we could contract it a bit, but I think by and large it was a very good delivery. In terms of the substance of it, of course, he lent heavily on the areas where they have made the most significant gains.
Right.
Water, which is obviously very important to all Ghanaians, and we were crying about water before Dumso.
Right.
So I think the gains made in water have been very significant. Probably they would even be more felt if the electricity had been working and the distribution of it and supply of it was, reaching many more people. But certainly it's a significant increase in capacity. The other area has been education. And the figures for girl-child education, attendance, enrollment, all those are not issues that you can really dispute. They're numbers, and you can see that they've steadily increased. And those are the kind of gains that we want to see and give us a measure of the progress that we are making. Now, when it comes to the issue of infrastructure, there was an endless list of roads. And it looks like everybody got satisfied, and hopefully those who didn't will get satisfied. The
problem roads that you think have been done?
Some of them were reported as having been done.
Right.
Certainly, I have traveled on the Damango Fufusu Road, and I know that it's now a very nice road, a big improvement from before. However, all these are on the expenditure side of the equation. So when you talk about the substance of it, you also have to talk about the overall impact in terms of the economy, because all these are expenditures. Now, where are the monies going to come from? And what is our capacity to generate additional income? And the real state of the nation is more on our capacity to generate income.
So it's a balanced book, expenditure, revenue.
That's right. To sustain.
But you seem to suggest that you didn't find a lot about where the revenue is going to come from.
Well, it was dealt with in passing. I think we all know where we get our revenue from. A significant proportion of our revenue comes from the agriculture side, cocoa, of course, our staple food crops, non-traditional crops. And then you have the mining to supplement. The mining, of course, the oil has come to add recently, but it's still a very small percentage of our total income. Now, there, I think, are the areas where we can look into detail, and because certainly cocoa story right now is not looking so good. Even the monies that we have borrowed, over 1.7 billion, when you look at the amount, the rate at which stocks are coming in, it is worrying. We're worrying about whether we'll be able to pay for this or not. Again, going back to the issue of debt accumulation. And that is probably the most significant thing that we need to talk about in the State of the Nation address. How we are going to manage the debt, and it's how it will affect our capacity to generate additional income.
And fix the infrastructure
and fix the infrastructure challenges.
But you didn't hear enough of how
I think the length of it was a bit long, and we would have liked to have heard more about those details, because that shows us the path forward. But nevertheless, I think, in the coming interactions,
we'll get some
we can
more.
Can that
can
a bit more.
Just a bit longer on this debt issue, because some have come in to say that was simply our appetite for borrowing is simply too huge.
Well, the issue basically is that we have to discipline ourselves. And the real problem is not that there aren't things to do with the money, but the fact that even when we borrow the money, the way we manage the money is a problem.
It doesn't go to do the right things.
It has to do with the laws concerning how you discipline expenditure and how Parliament itself is able to put in mechanisms that hold the executive accountable, and that has consequences if they are not met.
Right.
There are budget lines. If you exceed the budget line by more than 2%, it should trigger a certain
some action. Reaction from particularly Parliament.
Yes, but if we can rearrange the whole budget after presenting it, and at the end of the year, give a State of the Nation address in which we don't show accountability for that. And one of the problems I have is not so much the State of the Nation address, it's actually the presentation of the budget itself, because the budget should show more clearly how much we earned overall, how much was spent on each sector, and show us in red blocks by how much we exceeded and also the targets. And I think that will help us a lot, because sometimes when you take the budget as it's presented and know that the detailed background is behind, but in the form that it is presented to the general public, which is the document you and I can get to read, we don't really have the opportunity to see if there has been some serious accountability for the expenditures. So I think that coupled with other adjustments in the way the State of the Nation is presented would give us a more balanced picture to show not only what we have done with the money, and we like to hear, our roads. Of course, my hospital was mentioned, so I was very happy, But at the end of the day, it is about our collective condition. How has it affected our capacity to keep on doing these things? If water has increased, it's a good thing, but can we sustain it? And I think the level of debt now is an area for major concern, and how this debt is going to be managed going into the future, particularly as it affects our capacity to generate additional income and grow in critical areas is very important.
Government's defense that these debts are going into projects that will pay for themselves is not soothing enough.
I think, you see, at the end of the day, you really have to look at the total expenditures in the running of a country in two parts. What are the things that we must do because we want to manage and keep society in a certain state, so that nobody falls out at the bottom? Some of these things don't make any money and never will make any money, but we have determined, because we put a certain value on human dignity, that we will do them.
Right.
Okay? Now, there are some other areas that do make money, and the proportion of how much you are investing in the areas that do make money versus the areas that don't make money is really what determines your future ability to invest more.
So that's what we should look at.
So I think we need to look at that more critically. But overall, I think that the key areas of progress that we should perhaps derive some comfort from is that education, which is very critical, and water, which is very essential, have been the areas in which perhaps there have been the biggest progress. And of course, the road infrastructure as well, which will also further reduce transaction costs.
And you are happy about gains in education and the water sectors?
Yes.
You're happy about it?
Yes, because basically I think a lot of people, try living without water, it is worse than living with dumso.
Right. So would you say that
yes,
the gains made there have been overshadowed by the energy crisis?
Of course. I think that, I was about to say that the gains in these critical areas have been overshadowed by the dumso, no pun intended, but I think in the long run, the things that are fundamental are neither of these. The things that are fundamental is our capacity to keep growing and generate additional income. And that is going to be affected by the debt burden that we are carrying. And we have to find ways of reducing that debt burden. And you only reduce it by cutting wastes, and we heard of the measures that are being put in to reduce ghost names, all those things, etc. Those are all good.
The president talking about even
those are all
wage bill
good.
dropping
But
to
they are not enough. The issue is that you've got to generate more money than you are spending in order to keep afloat and be able to deliver more. And that capacity to generate more money is really where we need to see what are the expenditures that are going to generate that additional money. And that is where, when we came to talk about, the special presidential initiative on rice and the SADA, I felt that there should have been a bit more emphasis
on that,
because we know of the amount of money we're spending on rice. It's good to see that the production of it is going up, but you can only sustain that, if you're not relying on rain. If you rely on rain, that in just one season things could change.
The next season you cannot maintain the tempo.
Exactly. So in as much as we talk about road infrastructure and we can measure the kilometers and the progress being made, we should also measure the percentage of land under irrigation and the progress being made. And I tell you, if we can achieve 25 to 30% of cultivatable land under irrigation, we're over. Many of our problems will be
resolved,
because we would increase our GDP significantly. Think of the prospects of having 2 seasons in the north alone. And we have the water to be able to do it. And that is where SADA, as a strategic intervention, should focus not so much on the intervention of projects, but let's just say that we're going to convert the oil money into water. We already have the water.
And give it to the farmers to
do the infrastructure to deliver it.
Did you see that focus on agriculture?
Unfortunately, I think because of the range of things that were talked about, that didn't leap out enough for me. I was listening out for it. It's one of the areas where I think that, in the following interactions, it should be interrogated further, because it's not enough just to say that we will do it and we're tending to it. But the question is, what specific interventions? And are they projects, or are they strategic interventions that will have a long-term, pervasive impact, that can be sustained? So I think those are the areas that we need to look at in future.
I get you the opportunity, if you're watching us, the opportunity to speak to us on the State of the Nation address, what you think the President should have done, what he did not do. 03027634550. Dr. Abu Sakara is in the studio. I'll give you the chance to also speak to him. That's on your agenda. Right. So we're just saying with the State of the Nation address, Dr. Abu Sakara, the presidential candidate of CPP 2012, is still here. So in all, if you were, before we talk about CPP, if you were supposed to look at the book, you said, the expenditure, the revenue, would you say that from what we heard today, we are on course as far as bringing back the economy from the woods is concerned?
Well, I think the fact that we're making inroads, progress in critical areas of water, not just for consumption, but we should think of it for production.
Right.
And then we're making gains in education, always critical. Ghana must not lose its position
as far as
in
education
is concerned. It is what makes us stand out on the African continent. It's what has made us stand out, and we must not lose that. And investments in it in this generation will pay off significantly. So I think that one is a good one. Now, when we come to the issue of infrastructure, generally, yes, we talk about the general, but for me, the infrastructure that will bring significant returns to investment are the big roads are important, and tarring the feeder roads are important, but the farm track roads
need to be tarred.
No, they don't need to be tarred.
But we just need to put them in good shape.
Yeah, you just need to have labor to make them so that these motor kings can be traversing from the farms to
bring the foodstuff.
To bring the foodstuff and reduce the losses.
I get to speak to you about the CPP, but let me speak to Shadrach from Nungua. Shadrach, grateful to have you stay there for some few minutes. You're on air.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, Shadrach.
Yeah, actually, when I listened to the state address today, I realized something and I've learned a lot. It is a nation which is developing, and I greatly support the majority members in parliament with what they are doing, and which will help the country to develop it at a very fast rate. Yes, because the minority in parliament brought up a policy like the free senior high school policy in their campaign. And this is the time whereby the majority in parliament have done much on it. I mean, to add it to their policy in the nation development that they are doing now. And with that, you can see that it tells us that the nation is moving at a very expeditious rate. Now, this is the time that the minority have to sit down and bring up another policy that will help, that will draw the attention of the majority
to take it. Right. Shadrach, I think you made your point. You are excited that the minority in 2012 brought in the free senior high school, and the majority has now decided to implement that. I think that's where you were coming from. Grateful, Shadrach. Doc, the CPP is a government in waiting. Is the CPP ready at all?
Well, I think what concerns me today regarding the CPP is not only that both the NDC and the MPP have embraced our free universal education policy. Okay. I don't know why they're fighting over it, but you know the source of it, because it's not talking, we've done. Okay, so now the key thing I think here today is that something was signaled. I thought in the State of the Nation address, which was the increasing partisanship and cynicism that goes with partisan debate, and an appeal for more collaboration across our various political parties in the national
hold
interest.
It for me. We'll hold that partisan issue there. I'll come back to you. Maxam Etinkofodia. Maxam, grateful. You're on air.
Good evening. Good evening.
Maxam, good evening.
Yeah, good evening to your viewers too. Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I'm surprised about the way Dr.Abu Sakara, the way he's commenting about the state. Because we all know that when we say a state of somebody or something, it's about how that particular thing is at that time. We all know that the state of the nation is like somebody who is on the sick bed. The state is not moving.
Okay, that is what you think.
Is collapsing.
Okay. All right. Max, I'm grateful. That's what you think. You think that the state is collapsing. Grateful to have your view. Doc, we'll come back to react to some of this, but you were talking about the partisan nature with which we tackle some of the national issues.
This is part of the evidence that we're talking about. It's not that we're living in a rosy garden.
Right.
But we are on a journey. We make some gains. We have some areas which are deficits. We have to make additional progress there. But what I'm emphasizing is that our capacity to keep on making gains and sustaining the gains is what determines our state. If you lose that capacity, if you're in a race, you are nearly winning. Are you with me? Maybe you have given the others some distance, but you lose your capacity to keep running. You eventually lose the race. So your real state at that time is your capacity to finish. And I think the key thing in looking at the various aspects of the economy to determine what is the capacity of the country to keep on generating income, to be able to address the areas of services, because the areas of services will never be addressed in full. And the important thing is to be able to project beyond immediate needs and install some capacity. And what you see is trying to catch up on water, trying to catch up on education, but we are not catching up on electricity, but trying to catch up. The question is, all of these things, where will the money come from to do it? What is our current condition in terms of our debt burden, and how do we balance it? So, but let me go back to the CPP, because
yes,
it's a point.
I'll let you go back, but let me speak to Richard first. Richard Dansoman, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that you are doing a good job, because having the gentleman in your studio is making my night. Because if people will learn from you, and after the president have brought his statement, you bring people like this man to your studio to elaborate on what he said, then Ghana would have been a better place to me. I'm so happy you brought him there. If you had brought an MPP man, everything would have been negative. But because he's there as a Ghanaian and as an honorable man, he's speaking to the issues. And I give you a thumbs up. I thank you so much for doing this tonight. God bless you, and God bless you.
God bless you to Richard from Dansuma. Grateful for that commendation. Let's go back to the CPP's view on the partisanship with which we tackle every national issue.
Well, I think the key thing is that for us, anyway, in the CPP, we are a party founded on nationalism and Pan-Africanism. So the national interest is paramount to partisan interest. That is what I believe very strongly. And therefore, when we tackle national issues, even though we may have our partisan view about the best way to do it to achieve the optimum result, which will have the greatest benefit for all of us, the result is what is important, not our view. Because somebody else has an alternative view. So if you start quarreling because of your views, so that the result will not be achieved, we all suffer. And I think that is what we always need to put ahead of us in our analysis of things. Now, coming back to a climate that fosters that kind of thinking, which was basically, I think, what the president was speaking to today, which I think is a nice totem to have for any president's reign in office. We are traditional Africans.
Right.
We know every chief, when he comes, he chooses some totem to symbolize his period of reign. What is important there? What does Ghana need more than a reign in which we will stretch our arms, leave the baggage of the past behind, and get onto the train for a new future towards our destiny? This is what we need. And I think that came out today in the speech. It doesn't mean that we will not have differences.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I will not see holes in your argument and point out where those holes should be mended. We will continue to do that. We will continue to critique, but in the context of what is in the national interest. And I think our generation, if we are to achieve our full potential,
we need
must
to learn
focus
from
our attention there. And I think the spirit today of returning the CPP's assets, or announcing that following the visit by the Council of Elders, he will return the CPP's assets to them, will go a long way towards generating that kind of atmosphere, not just between CPP and the NDC, but also between other political parties, knowing that this is the new atmosphere in which we are going to cultivate our relationships.
Right.
We are not going to attempt to hold you down by illegal and fair means. If we have a $20 million party building, we will not take the one you struggled to build.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it is important that this has come up now. And on anybody who would argue against it, I would say, well, there have been many opportunities for it to come out in the past.
But this is the best time.
Thank you.
Dr. Sakara, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up. Grateful to have you tonight. I'm sure we'll continue the debate on other issues, but that's how we're wrapping up the big one.